when we talk, we'll just talk. But ready? Okay. Hi and welcome to Talkathon at Budget 2015. This is Chetan Bhagat. I'm here with somebody very, very special today, the Finance Minister of the world's biggest democracy, Mr. Arun Jaitley. Before I go up to him, let me just tell you about this unique initiative, because this is probably something unique not only in India but also the world. Talkathon is a platform which connects virtual space to physical world. So today we have the budget of the world's biggest democracy has been out by a new government, and the finance minister is here, and he'll be answering questions not just of the press but of common people, of students, of youth, of anybody, senior citizens, anybody who's in the virtual world and who has hashtag AskYourFM. He will answer the questions. I must say I've lived in many countries, sir, and this kind of thing has not happened. So congrats to the IB ministry and yourself to do it, because here it is, a man who managed a budget of 17 lakh crores. Just to give people an idea, how do you even, visualize that kind of money, 17 lakh crores?
See, theoretically this amount should have been much larger, but for the report of the 14th Finance Commission. The central government collects taxes from people. It doesn't merely collect for itself, it also collects for the states.
Okay.
And the Finance Commission decides what percentage is to go to the states. And this time the 14th Finance Commission decided, and in my view rightly so, that the states in India should be co-partners in development. And therefore, in addition to what the states themselves collect, they decided, as against 32%, to give the states a jump of 10%, 42%. In addition to 42, they get it for municipalities, for panchayats, they get some money for disaster relief, and then the 11 revenue deficit states get money. So the states get their own money and they get 47% of what the center collects. So to that extent, my revenue is depleted. If I had gone by last year's formula, I probably would have crossed the figure of, or touched the figure of 20 lakh crores.
Wow.
So that's why our monies available with me are approximately about 2 lakh crores less.
Okay, it's still a very mind-boggling number, and I was going to ask this later on, because I think some of the talk going around, especially by your opponents, some who are doing their own press conferences today, are that some of the numbers, the absolute numbers in the same budget column seem less on some of the spending on education and things like that. Can you just explain, clarify this?
As far as the central's expense is concerned, you have the revenue expense. So whatever is the interest on loans, it has to be paid.
Of course.
Whatever has to be spent on defense and national security has to be spent. Whatever has to be spent in terms of salaries and maintaining the establishment of government has to be spent. Even if you try and reduce it, it can't be reduced. Now, since 10% more money has gone to the states, the size of the cake available with the central government is depleted. Therefore, when a misguided opinion says, are you spending less on education, are you spending less on healthcare, the country is spending much more.
Yeah,
because the size of my cake has reduced, so the planned expenditure, this time it hasn't reduced. I will be spending as much as we spent last year, because revenues also, go up. So compared to the revised estimates of last year, I'll probably spend as much or a little more. The states which have been enriched will spend a lot more.
Yeah.
So the national expenditure on all these sectors will be much higher. A myopic view will be, since you've transferred money to the states and it's being spent by the states, so your share is a little lesser. But that's what the Finance Commission, that's a technical argument, that's what the Finance Commission has decided.
So people who are really looking at, taking on the government on this, please do realize, it's like the parents have given the money to the children. They are building.
And today both are spending.
Today both are spending.
So the collective spending is much higher.
So the children can't tell the parents, but you didn't buy me a gift, but they also gave you the money themselves. So that's largely the thing. And that is why I think a lot of experts have praised the budget also. There is some criticism too. But tell me something, did you feel the pressure, the first Modi government budget, the world, from the biggest publications in the world, everybody is watching?
I'll tell you, Indian budget making is a complicated process. Complicated because you have different segments to deal with. on one hand, and the debate at times gets misguided. Are you pro-rich? Are you pro-poor? I have tried to obliterate this distinction. Therefore, you want the economy to grow at 8%, 9% and finally double digit. If you take steps for the economy to grow at that faster pace, are you pro-rich? But then that's what's going to give you the revenue so that you can spend on education, healthcare, weaker section and so on.
Exactly, yeah.
Therefore, that's the other section that you have to really be concerned is the marginalized people, weaker sections. Therefore, the revenues from growth have to come to them. And then you have this vast, huge Indian middle class. You have to enrich it. That's the purchasing power of this middle class. You have to get them to save, you have to get them to spend, and you have to do the balancing exercise yourself. In the process, a lot of money has to be spent on development. Don't forget, our infrastructure is still very weak. Our manufacturing has to become globally competitive. Therefore, to spend on infrastructure, to spend on manufacturing, to get revenues by expediting growth rates and then to divert those resources to the poor people. So the budget is not a one road exercise. You have to walk on several roads at the same time.
Yeah, in fact, I noticed you said today that our tax rate for corporates is not competitive compared to the ASEAN. I think the first time I've seen an FM say that the tax rate is not competitive compared to the region. What is this competition?
I'll tell you. If you look at the ASEAN region, who compete with us for investment, their average corporate taxation is 21.9%. There are countries which go down to as low as 15 and 20%.
Yeah, Hong Kong is 15. Yeah.
15%, 20%. So when an investor is looking to invest, he will look at two prospects. A, when I enter your country, what is the kind of reception do I get? So the investor says, well, in India, and this is one of the Japanese investors met me recently and told me bluntly on my face, you increase your FDI limits, you lay down a red carpet, and once we enter, for the next 5 years, you make us run from office to office for permissions, which is probably true. So I started looking at a system, which I have indicated in the budget, where instead of multiple prior permissions, can we have a regulator with guidelines? You start business straight away in India on basis of those guidelines. Now, that's the ease of doing business. That's the first point. The second point that an investor looks at is, if I invest in your country, what is the return I get? If he realizes that a bulk of it goes as taxation, then he doesn't find your taxation very friendly. And this is not what the foreign investor is looking at. Why is it that Indian investors decide to set up plants in, let's say, Indonesia? Why is it that all the fund managers who are Indians decide to shift their base to Singapore? You've been a banker, so you know much better that a bulk of the bankers and fund managers have moved because your taxation regime is not competitive. But now, if you want jobs to be created in India, if you want taxes to be paid in India, if you want these businesses to come to India, you have to beat them in the competition. Therefore, you are not being pro-rich. You are making sure that your regime becomes competitive. And the tragedy with India is our corporate rate is 30% plus surcharges, but we give umpteen number of exemptions. There are pressure groups, there are rent seekers, there are people working all the time. Give it to my region, give it to my industry, give it to for this purpose, give it for another purpose. So you yield to pressure groups. And my actual rate of recovery of tax, corporate India pays 23%.
Yeah.
Therefore, I lose out on both counts. The world thinks I am a very high tax charging country and my revenue pockets are very shallow because I don't get the tax. So the rational approach is slowly bring the rates down to international competitiveness and phase out all the exemptions. Elsewhere in the world, their rates are reasonable, they don't allow any exemptions. Yeah. This is what the direct tax code prepared during the Congress government had said. And I see nothing wrong in it.
Yeah, no, I must say you are saying it very naturally, but it's a big departure because you're saying your competition for India today is other countries. You're not saying my competition is the Congress and the AAP. You please, because that's what the budget becomes for governments. It becomes something.
We have to decide whether budgets are only a political positioning or are they an economic exercise. At the end of the day, do I want 500 new industries to come up, set shop in India? and therefore they'll give jobs, they'll pay taxes, they'll make India more prosperous. That's the approach I am looking for. And therefore a narrow approach that on paper I put a very high rate of taxation, but nobody comes in to pay me that tax.
Correct. So that's
therefore I have to decide which approach I must follow.
Okay. Now we go to the sea out there of people, India which is watching this, India which is typing in their questions. So these are not my questions, so they are pretty much unfiltered. So they could just come from anywhere and any kind of question. So let's just go for it, right? So this person who goes by the Twitter handle Yeda Yogi, I don't know what his real name is saying, why didn't the FM increase the exemption limit, which he wanted about a year back? There you go. There's some old article of yours, I think you wanted the IT slab at 5 lakh at that time. He's dug it out.
Ideally, at today's level of inflation in India, if you want to put more monies in the pocket of small people, small earning people, we have to raise our limits. Now today my fiscal capacity doesn't permit me to do so. So last year from 2 lakhs, I raised it to 2.5 lakhs. I gave other rebates also. For instance, the housing loan from 1.5 lakhs, I raised it to 2 lakhs. ATC exemptions, I raised it from 1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs. So I am giving relief the other way, because the route that I am following has 2 distinct advantages. So this year today, I gave 3 or 4 distinct, I gave relief in terms of medical treatment and health insurances. As a part of my commitment to social security, I want as many people in India to have a health insurance, because the worst thing that a man with limited resources can happen to him is to fall ill and go to a hospital. The second, transportation. We are giving paltry amounts to our taxpayers where the cost of transportation has gone up. The third is a very important thing I did. I again permitted a 50,000 rupee deduction under section 80CCD for those who invest in the national pension scheme. Now what is the common thread of 80C, housing loan or insurance scheme? That I am asking taxpayers, I'll give you a tax incentive, which in other words mean the revenue will pay. The revenue will pay. Please invest in savings. Please invest in health insurances, invest in life insurances, invest in pension schemes, invest in provident funds, invest in a house so that you repay back a loan. Now most of these investments increase the savings limit as far as the country is concerned. India had a savings, domestic savings of about 36%. We are now 30%. So I wanted to go back to 36%. And these savings are useful for your future. That is in the case of pension when you retire.
Yeah.
How long can India be a pension-less society? India must become a pension-less society. Therefore, I am giving them tax relief in this manner, where they save for their future, and their savings becomes a national investment, because all these savings in the pension funds, etc., go on for building roads, they go on for building power plants, they go on for building ships and for ports and for various other purposes.
Yeah.
So this is a far better methodology that I have found. The net effect is the same.
4.4 lakhs, I think, is already there.
And today I have taken it, it's a 2 lakh increase in my 2 budgets. That today it is 4.44 lakhs or a little more than that. If you avail of every exemption available, this is what you get. So a person with 7 lakh income, forget 5 lakhs, if he avails everything, he doesn't have to pay tax.
Yeah, I mean, even 4.4 lakhs, that's like, almost an income of 40,000 per month. And you can, if you plan it properly, you can get away with very little tax.
People at that level won't have everything to save, because they'll need something for spending also. I quite appreciate that. But let's say somebody with a...
But they'll be in a very low rate.
There'll be a 8 or a 10 lakh, somebody with a 10 lakh income, who's a reasonable middle class in India, is in a position to buy a house, pay his interest on his EMIs, pay for a pension scheme, pay for a provident fund, pay for his children's education, pay for his transportation, and then get deductions, and then only end up paying a nominal amount of tax.
Okay. Another one, and again, a little, this is Bhavesh Jha, and he's putting it like this: why are you making NREGA a bigger disaster? I guess that's his view, by allocating more funds to it.
You see, You can be critical about the manner in which a scheme runs. I've been critical of Manrega, that Manrega should also be asset creation. But at the same time, the reason I allocated funds this year for additional funds for Manrega is not merely because the Congress party said you are abolishing it and we said it's false, we are not doing it, or I shut up that whole criticism. But this year, on an actual academic study, the economic survey yesterday says so, and my budget speech says so, that we are worried on one of the challenges is that rural wages and incomes have actually not increased. They've increased, but increased very marginally.
Okay.
And therefore, in the rural areas, it's necessary to put in more money. Therefore, to up the rural incomes, since Manrega, rightly or wrongly, is an ongoing scheme, there's nothing wrong in investing in it, because then it adds to the livelihood of those people. So just because Congress started it, I must look at it grudgingly. I don't believe in that. I have to up the rural incomes, and that upping of the rural incomes itself will help the economy.
In fact, your opposition there's been a lot, right from the land bill. There has been this, their constant narrative that they are trying to build is anti-farmer, the government doesn't know farmers, doesn't care about farmers. I mean, how does that make you feel? I mean,
well, according to me, if there is anything which is anti-farmer, it is the 2013 land bill. This land bill prevents creation of any form of rural infrastructure. It prevents rural roads. So, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana is gone. Rural electrification and irrigation, rural housing. Now, for all these activities in the rural areas, you need land.
Of course.
None of these are an exempted purpose. Now, the ordinance which we have brought in, we've said, you can, by paying 4 times more than the value of land, get land for this rural infrastructure. And those who are opposing it want to oppose the creation of rural infrastructure. Second, one of the purposes for which we have exempted it is affordable housing and housing for poor. Now, affordable housing is an apartment of 800 square feet and housing for poor. Urban people by and large have a pakka roof on their head. It's the rural migration which is taking place around the cities where people need houses. You need houses for poor. These houses for poor are not developed by these big city builders.
Yeah.
They are developed by agencies that the government creates. You are opposing acquisition of land. That housing needs land. So, any reform we want in terms of rural infrastructure and in terms of housing for the poor, those who oppose the improvement in the quality of life of the rural population will say, well, we are pro-farmer, and yet do something which effectively goes against his interest.
Okay. Getting back to the budget, there's always this talk, this question is from ROH and Ron Malik, who asked this question 3 minutes ago. There is no mention of one rank, one pension in your budget, and what are your plans about it?
Well, our manifesto stated so. My budget last time sanctioned money for it, and therefore we are committed to one rank, one pension. Every document need not say so, since we've already said it last year, so it's carried over. Those funds are available. This time, notwithstanding the financial squeeze because of larger grants to the state, I have already sanctioned 25,000 crores more for the Ministry of Defence. So, as against 2,22,000 crore last year, I am about 2,46,000 crores this year. The Ministry of Defence and the services have to come out with a workable formula. The funds are there, one rank, one pension can be implemented. There is absolutely no doubt or hesitation in doing
that's
so.
quite clear. Okay. Jaideep VK, who asked this 5 minutes ago, how does this budget boost the young entrepreneur business? I think startups, and there are many questions like this. Youngsters especially, they're looking at startups, they find it difficult to get offices.
Let's now forget ourselves and look at the whole range from the rich to the poor or vice versa. This is the first time an Indian budget after independence, this new bank called Mudra that we are creating. Now, I am talking of the resourceless. 5 crore 77 lakh traders in India. So, from the man who runs a redi, who goes on or runs a kiosk on the roadside, or who's a vegetable vendor or a small shopkeeper, This is the unfunded section of Indian society.
Yeah.
They generate their own private funds by borrowing or from the family. None of them is funded by the banks. Now, it's a very large section of people. It's almost 20-25% of India's population, completely self-employed. So you will have rural young people looking for jobs and employing themselves there. Now, I have for this entire section created a special bank, which will eventually become a bank, with 20,000 crores sanctioned to it, which will fund this unfunded section. You move a step further, students who can't afford. I've expanded the scope of student loans. Now, if you come down to those who are more fortunate and want to do businesses, etc., I have to increase opportunities. So, on technology items, which is very youth oriented, I have reduced the duties.
Okay.
So that you make them cheaper. For people who want to startups, we already have a scheme last year that we announced, and we had a fund created for that purpose, which will help the startups, etc. And therefore, you have to unleash the energies of people. Now, a small proposal which I just told you, starting manufacturing business in India without permission.
Yeah.
It's going to unleash entrepreneurship, in domestic entrepreneurship in a big way.
So you can actually manufacture things now without permissions? Is that?
No, I have appointed a committee. I am appointing a committee which will suggest a law which we will pass. So these 20 prior permissions required before manufacturing will be replaced by a regulatory mechanism.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Yeah. That's okay. Saurabh Kesri asked this 8 minutes ago, and I think infrastructure has been a big push in your budget. How do you see the growth of infrastructure market post your budget? Won't it help big companies only?
Well, what is infrastructure? I'll start with just the illustrations. Railways. So from railway stations to trains to toilets to food in the railways, is it going to help big companies? Highways. The builder will be a company, but today we don't even have builders left in this country because the manner in which the UPA managed the National Highway Authority, it's in a bad shape. So if the Highway Authority is unleashed and it starts functioning, hasn't it made traveling by highways and roads our life much simpler in India?
Yeah.
Power sector. The producer will be a company, but if India becomes surplus in power, who benefits? The individual citizen. So irrigation and ports. So these are the 5 areas that I have earmarked for special attention, each one of which, if it develops, helps the average citizen of India, it increases opportunities for him.
Yeah, there is this, in fact, you mentioned it a few days ago also, let's not make industry a bad word. And there's this sense that there is a win-lose always. If it's either the big company winning or the common.
Well, I have always believed that this debate in India is purely misguided. It was earlier misguided by the left parties, now it is misguided by the Congress party. If you are, for example, on the land bill, the biggest scandal is that you are going to acquire land for infrastructure or for industry. So I said in Parliament, why do you make infrastructure or industry a bad word? If infrastructure grows, industry will grow, India's revenues will grow, the poor are going to get jobs. Now look at an area like tourism. So we relate tourism to the rich. But 11% of world population is employed directly or indirectly through tourism. So every time you have a hotel created, there is one job inside the hotel and there are 4 jobs outside the hotel which are created because of that.
Yeah.
Now the rich man spends on tourism, but the poor get jobs on tourism.
Of course.
That's how the system functions.
And in that I noted something, 150 countries will get visa on arrival. That's almost the entire world. So we are basically opening up.
9 months ago in my first budget, I mooted the idea of e-visas and visas on arrival. Today we are issuing only 1,000 visas a day in India, e-visas. Just 1,000. And I read figures last week that in the last 7-8 months, there is a significant hike in the number of arrivals into India. Therefore, what have I selectively done? I have said we'll keep expanding it on all airports to 150 countries. So getting into India becomes easier. When you get into India, where do you go? That's the next question. So we have the beaches, we have the resorts, we have the mountains, we have the forests, we have culture, we have religion, we have everything that constitutes tourism. So of the 25 World Heritage Sites in India, this year I have selected 10. And I said, I will give money to the culture ministry for these 10. Please build a complete infrastructure around these. Next year, hopefully, I'll give money for another 5 or 7 and develop these 25 World Heritage sites in a big way. And therefore, once you have an infrastructure around those sites which are created, after all, if you have Jaipur, Agra, Delhi, these are places of great interest. This has become the tourism triangle of India. So why can't Hampi in Karnataka, the churches of Goa, let's say the mosques in Hyderabad, these are all areas which are national assets, and therefore we have to spend money in preserving them.
Excellent. I will move to gold, which is a big issue in your budget this time. Rajaram asked this 5 minutes ago, and maybe of course there's a lot of stuff available on the internet as well, but how does this gold monetization work for individuals? What does he tell his mother who likes to buy gold at every festival?
In India, Indians are passionately attached to gold. So a gold in our society, where women were traditionally not getting property rights, this is her asset. It was given to her at marriage, and the mothers and the wives all kept gold, etc. Over the years, in order to hedge inflation, people buy gold. That's the other matter. Now, this is quite difficult in the context of gold jewelry, because if you go and deposit jewelry, you want the jewelry back. So it's difficult to implement it in that. But gold, raw gold, and people who keep raw gold as their savings or as their asset, it's a dead asset as far as the country is concerned. So if you keep money in a bank, the bank will use it by giving a loan to somebody who will set up a shop. So it's being used. If you even build a surplus house, somebody will live in it, so it's an asset. If you create a building, somebody will use it for office, it's an asset. But if you just keep raw gold, it's a dead asset. So what I have tried to do is to unlock this dead asset by offering 3 schemes. Scheme 1, you can deposit your gold with the bank. The bank can utilize that gold further and give you a nominal rate of interest. Otherwise, you are not getting any interest. Gold remains gold. And when you go back after 2 years or 5 years or 7 years under the scheme and say, give me my gold back, you get the gold back, which may be of a higher value.
So not only the bank stores the gold for you, it will give you a small interest.
And
whereas you have to keep it safe.
And the bank will monetize that gold for its own banking.
So you don't have to keep it under the mattress.
So the second advantage of gold is don't buy gold. So those who buy it in order to hedge inflation, that the gold prices will go up. So I said the government will come out with a scheme where gold bonds will be issued. So instead of buying gold, you will have a piece of paper. You buy it at today's rate, you go back after some years and take the, sell the bond back, and you will get money which is the then value of gold. So without the physical gold coming in, the money of the gold will be used. So that's the monetization of the gold through the bond. And the third, we've all seen it, and most of it would be smuggled, I believe. These gold coins and gold guineas being given at marriages and gifts, and lakhs and millions of them are circulating in India. They are not made in India. They are all of foreign origin. The guinea itself is a foreign origin. And therefore we said, let us officially use the gold within the country to make gold coins so that people officially have them, and that will have the Ashok Chakra on it.
Oh, nice.
So let's have the Indian gold coin rather than just rely on foreign gold coins which are smuggled into the country.
That's right. Moving on to Amit Modi's question. ये GST के बारे में है कि what is the possibility of GST getting implemented next year, and he has an interesting point that why did you increase the service tax to 14% now when GST is just around the corner?
No, it is, you see, it's service tax with the surcharge itself is about 12.36. 12.36 has become 14. And once GST comes, in the initial years, service tax only the center has been charging, the states will also charge it. So to bring it at, to prepare for the GST itself, some increase in service tax was required. So I'm moving in that direction, that's the reason. And the second reason, of course, is when I give you 5 different rebates elsewhere, I need to balance my books also.
Okay. Tell me something, this GST, you said it should be there by April 2016. So that's not very far. So what would be the announcements in the next,
I'll tell you.
I mean, it doesn't have to wait for the budget now, right?
No. Step one, the bill which I have introduced to amend the constitution should be passed in this session of parliament. If it is passed, the GST empowered group of ministers will need a chairman, because Mr. Rathar, who is the former J&K minister, is no longer a minister, so we'll need a new minister to head them. One of the finance ministers will head it. Stage 3, after passing the constitution amendment, we'll give it to the GST Council, empowered group. Please discuss the legislations. There are 3 supporting legislations under the constitution amendment which has to be passed. The amendment would be ratified by the states, and these 3 bills which will be passed by parliament in the states, and then you need the IT infrastructure, or the backbone as they call it, for GST to be ready. The professionals who are working on it, they say they are in a fairly advanced stage of readiness. They see no problem, and if all this can happen in this year, then 1st April 2016 you will have one of the biggest tax reforms in India since independence.
Wow. You said there is a passage of a bill, and do you expect the opposition, do you have any word for the opposition right now, because this bill seems to be pretty crucial for India?
You see, I think it's extremely crucial for India. This is a bill that the Congress party itself has mooted. We have consulted all the states. Almost all the states are on board, and I hope it's passed.
You don't expect any...
It's not a political issue. It's a fiscal reform in India. And I think all parties should put their heads together, particularly when we've been looking at these fiscal reforms from a non-partisan. In fact, the biggest beneficiaries of the 14th Finance Commission and my budget today are the non-BJP states.
Yeah.
You see, the Prime Minister said that eastern part of the country needs to be developed. Now look at Bihar. Bihar doesn't have mineral, so it's not getting coal royalty.
Yeah.
How does industry get in? So I have extended the Andhra package to Bihar.
Okay.
To make sure that the people who invest in industry in Bihar get some tax rebates.
Is there any sense of what the GST level would be yet?
You see, the rate at which it will be charged, I think the GST Council will have to decide that.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Abhay Singh asked this. What is the roadmap for housing for all by 2022? What is my participation if I want to as an architect or as a citizen?
You see, this is the activity in which the centre and all the states together will have to participate. We need 6 crore houses, 2 crore urban and 4 crore rural to come up by 2022, which is just about 7 years away. And the biggest resource that you require for this is land. Therefore, the Ministry of Urban Development has come out with a fascinating proposal where you use land as a resource and you give an enhanced FSI on the land which is to be used for housing for all. Therefore, your buildability is a little more, and that little extra buildability also provides revenue. And now with its resources, the centre and the states will both have to put their heads together to construct this housing. Okay. And you'll have to have at that rate almost close to 80 lakhs to 1 crore housing per year.
Okay. Speaking of land and land, one question that's from my side actually. You know, just as you divest in PSUs, there is a lot of government entities which may have surplus land somewhere, and land sales can also be a source of revenue for the government. Many countries it is, Singapore, Hong Kong, many. Has that ever been something that a land sale program which will can be a sizable chunk of revenue?
Well, whether it's land sale or land exploitation,
yeah,
or the potential of land being harnessed and fully utilized, I think I'd rather look at it as the potential. And therefore, if you have surplus land, use the FSI on that land. FSI is also money.
Correct.
And therefore, that can be converted into a resource.
Okay, just sell the FSI. Okay. Ashish Jain asked this, why is GAR implementation deferred? I guess he means deferred. Isn't this the right time to plug tax leakages through tax avoidance?
You see, there is some merit that you can have in the GAR argument, because the general rules of avoidance have been now redefined globally. And these rules are that earlier conventionally in taxation, evasion was not allowed, avoidance was allowed. Now the new rules of interpretation have completely done away with this distinction between avoidance and evasion, and it is that rule which is to be applied. Now today, I still feel that there is a vulnerability in the Indian economy in terms of attracting investment. And therefore, in the Indian context and the way it is implemented, there is a little bit of a scare. We need to re-establish our credibility on taxation matters because we had a fairly bad track record as an adversarial taxation nation during the UPA period. Last 9 months, we put a number of issues at rest. Now, if I bring in GAR right now, with or without amendments, it will send panic into the market. And this is not a stage where I can afford to allow investment to run away, investment not to come. And inadequate investment may also mean impacting the rupee-dollar parity.
Yeah.
Therefore, I didn't want to disturb the apple cart. Let's have a thorough discussion on it. Let's pause for a moment, have a discussion on it, and it's that appropriate stage that we'll decide.
You may even get rid of it, you think? And come up with something else to...
No, I am not suggesting that for a moment. I am quite open about what to do with it, and I'll proceed with it more logically and rationally.
Okay, okay. Nishant Rajput wants to know this. How would you connect Make in India with education, still in a backseat as compared to defense, always upfront in the budget? I guess defense is costs a lot. And
defense, you see, was something which is also a part of Make in India. Because defense was only imported into India.
Okay.
And therefore, imported into India, the present government changed the strategy and said it's better to not rely on goods manufactured by foreigners outside India. Indians and foreigners can jointly manufacture them in India.
Yeah.
And therefore, we had a different approach as far as this was concerned. Now, the result of this is that as far as Make in India is concerned, it will depend on A, infrastructure, B, it will also depend on availability of capital, C, on ease of doing business, and D, on what your indirect tax structures are. And that is why, to help Make in India, I have reduced duties on 22 items which are raw materials.
Yeah. Okay.
Therefore, our inputs should cost less.
Okay. Super Tramp King within asked this. I think you have proposed this. Why not make tax evasion a criminal offence? And actually, I would like to add a side question to it. You said there was an impression that it become a very tax adversarial government. So, would making it a criminal offence have the other effect where the taxman has too much power? What
we have done today is not in relation to domestic violation. You know, your return, the assessing officer can say that I am adding 50 lakh rupees to it. So that's strictly evasion. You can't be subjected, you'll say I'll file an appeal, you can't be subjected to any harassment because of that. But today's amendments don't relate to domestic taxation. They only relate to acquisition of foreign assets or accounts illegally outside India. So if you smuggle your money out of the country, the money flies out of the country, and national assets are taken outside India, and those are kept outside, we'll provide you a window of opportunity to bring them back, pay the penalties and suffer the consequences. And if the window closes, then there is going to be a tough law in place, and the tough law means prosecution. As far as you are concerned, no compoundability, no settlement commission, and a very high level of fine along with a jail sentence.
So that window is going to be announced soon, you think?
That law will come, so we'll probably... One of the factors we have in mind is to announce.
But what about, like, in fact, many of people ask me this, that what about the NRIs who are moving back to India? They have assets abroad. They have, that's a non-issue.
This only applies to illegal assets. The NRIs assets outside India are legal assets.
And once they move back to India, that's all fine.
You see, if they declare it to the Reserve Bank and keep the, for instance, sitting here, you can own an apartment in New York with the RBI permission. But if you did it without the RBI permission, it's only then that it becomes illegal.
Okay. Or if you moved money from here and then...
And opened an account surreptitiously there without an RBI permission, it's only then that will apply. It's only law violators who have to worry.
Okay. But if you are an NRI, you are working in a bank abroad, that's fine.
That's fine. You see, it's only on illegally held money. It's not on legitimately held money.
Yeah. If you earned your money and you can show how you earned it, that's fine. Okay. Kishore Murari asked this, and this is kind of the vein of many questions actually. You know, no special status to Andhra Pradesh as mentioned in the bifurcation bill approved by Parliament by. And people often say, why not something for this state or this section of society? Or
you see, we now have a finance commission. Various commitments have been made to the state of Andhra Pradesh at the time of reorganization. Now you have the finance commission. If you read the two together, there are some overlapping areas where the finance commission will prevail. It's a later document. But where the finance commission doesn't deal with it, we stand by every commitment we have made to Andhra Pradesh in the bill. And therefore, we've already paid some of the monies. In fact, Andhra has to be given money for revenue shortfall. The finance commission has already provided for it. Andhra has to be given money for the creation of a new capital. We'll fully support them. Andhra has to be given some incentives for industry. I've already announced an investment allowance and an additional depreciation if you invest in Andhra.
Okay. So there is a lot of steps done. There is a question by Lord Emsworth who says, while there is a lot of black money stashed abroad, how do you propose to stop the further generation of black money in India? I mean, while some money abroad, you want to bring it back, how do you make sure that more is not generated?
If you closely read between the lines what I have said in the budget today, Benami Act being legislated in India. So if you hold it Benami, you lose the asset. 2, cash transactions beyond 20,000 in property prohibited. PAN number necessary in all transactions. And then I have put a paragraph, I am still to work out that scheme, that eventually now that even the weaker sections of society have a rupee card because of the Janadhan accounts, can we consider turning India into a society which transacts in cash very little? Elsewhere in the world, as societies grow, you become cashless, it's a credit card society. So in India, since even the weaker sections have a debit card, can we incentivize the use of the debit card?
Okay, so you would like us to move to a more cashless society, even with mobile phones today. Even if you don't have a card, most mobile phones now are getting smart pay technologies, mobile wallets.
That'll all
in the next 5-7 years,
it will all contribute to it.
So you're hoping that once the cash moves,
that's the direction in which you have to move.
Okay, okay. Rohit, which is Gupta Rohit 93 asked 5 minutes ago that India will still spend $2.27 trillion. I don't think it's dollars, I think it's rupees in subsidy. Basically, subsidy amounts are still similar to what the UPA had. So he's asking, what's the difference then between UPA and NDA?
I'll tell you. We believe that the poor in this country need subsidy. So the idea is not to eliminate subsidies. The idea is A, to plug leakages in subsidies, and B, make sure that the non-deserving don't get them. It's only the deserving who get them. And now petrol has been linked to the market. We've linked diesel to the market. Now your LPG is the third round of change which is coming about, which is going into the bank accounts directly. Today I have announced that people who can afford it must voluntarily give up their LPG subsidy. Already about a couple of lakh people have given it up. Now we want to take this figure into crores. And therefore, once we are done with, the next item we look at is kerosene. The poor are entitled to kerosene. But are the non-deserving entitled to low-cost kerosene? So all these questions will have to be addressed one by one.
Okay, so you're just targeting. There used to be, in fact, earlier on, I remember when I was growing up, budgets used to be jam is more expensive, pickle is cheaper. You know, you had that list and everybody in the evening would discuss, "Arey, ye sasta ho gaya, ye mehenga ho gaya." You've kind of not gone into that too much. Was that conscious?
I think that trend has been increasingly coming down. A budget is essentially a policy document. And therefore, even the items which you tinker with are essentially industrial production items.
So you have no desire to be Santa Claus?
Well, I think it's only in the context of some kind of products you can intervene, not every.
But you never felt that political pressure. You never, when you did it, you really did it. I'm doing this for India, I'm managing India's money. You did not take the political thing. How much does that, how do you switch hats?
Well, you always have pressures, but the idea is eventually you are dealing with the public exchequer, and therefore objectivity will have a role to play in that.
Okay. Okay, Shiva Prakash asked this, sir, there is no mention of river interlinking, which I feel is important to boost agriculture and to stop rural migration.
Well, the Department of Waterways is dealing with these issues, and therefore it's a part of their programs. It's been mentioned several times, need not repeat it every time in the budget.
Okay. Okay, let's see some more here. How do you expect to, this is Rahul Sharma, how do you expect to attract foreign investments apropos to the future vacillation of the rupee versus dollar? I guess he's trying to say that the rupee, the stability of the rupee, is that something that you...
Well, stability of the rupee is extremely important, but it has to find its real value itself. And therefore, let's not forget, rupee today is stronger 6.9% against a basket of currencies.
Yeah.
So your rupee was, for instance, 107 rupees to a British pound. It's today 93, 94 rupees to a British pound. So it's become stronger. The strongest currency in the world at the moment is the US dollar.
Yeah.
And rupee is one of the two currencies which is withstanding the pressure of the US dollar. Otherwise, whether it's the ruble or the yen or the pound or the euro, they seem to be doing badly.
Yeah. There was a question earlier, just one above this. Can you just go one up? On higher education. And in fact, I was curious to know, a lot of people are sending kids abroad and we are losing a lot of foreign exchange on education. Not even imported stuff, but actually people want to... how do you... I think, and Sriram CB's question is this: higher education in India is few and it's expensive. I mean, how do you plan to cover that? How do you want to keep that money in India? How do you want to make sure?
I think you need not islands of excellence in India, you need oceans of them, considering we have a large population. And therefore, both public and private spending on this has to increase. I personally don't mind if we collaborate with some of the best institutions globally, our institutions set up shop there and vice versa, because it's a human resource that you can turn out. Now, private education is going to be costly, therefore loans. After all, the teachers have to be paid, the buildings have to be very, very compatible to institutions of learning. So these are not cheaper institutions.
Okay. I think we are almost running out of time. So I want to thank you firstly, because I know it's been a very long, not only day, but a week. Your staff told me how you've been all up late at night. I want to tell one tidbit to, for the viewers' sake. There is a room, or actually more than a room, a space which is called the quarantine space. There are a lot of the staff associated with the budget stays there for a week or more with no mobile phones. The beds are there, the food comes there. And that's not an urban myth. That's actually true.
No, that's absolutely true.
So can you just talk
about
about
when
that?
This building was built.
We are in the north block just for...
And there is a basement underneath towards one part of the building. There is the budget press is there. Therefore, all printing relating to the budget documents is done there. And since we have the old convention from the British age to maintain secrecy, once all the proposals are filed, about 10 days before the budget, there's a large number of staff members at various levels who go in there. They eat, sleep there. They work on their computers. No mobile phones are allowed. This year they've been allowed a television there. They only get newspapers in the morning. There are bunkers like a railway compartment where they sleep. And they work round the clock on the budget documents. And when the finance minister finishes reading his speech, they are all let off.
Yeah.
So you have to have a doctor in attendance because there are a large number of them. Their food is brought every day from outside. And there are a very dedicated lot who've been going in there.
Yeah, so who would have thought that the government jobs are boring and budgets are about just accountants sitting? There is a lot of adventure here too. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jaitley, for giving us the budget. It's hard enough for us to manage our household budgets, but you've managed to bring out a budget which I think at least all the channels I was watching, all the experts have been giving very good reviews. Does that make you feel good? That is a relief?
Well, it's a satisfying experience because ultimately these are all monies being spent for a larger public good.
Yeah. And I think the main focus is, this is just a document, but your broader vision to see India grow, to see India become rich, to have growth rates, to have all sections of the society progress. It's a very noble intention, and all your efforts, I hope they come to fruit and we all see that. And thank you once again. And thanks to the INB Ministry for, I must say, the unique initiative. I think in the world, this doesn't happen, that the FM presents the budget and talks to common people straight away, and it's happening in the world's biggest democracy. So thank you so much, IB Ministry, for this opportunity.